Every second you can save your user is a second gain in user satisfaction and therefore your earnings potential. There's a powerful use case for LLMs hiding in plain sight, and the best part is this solution we'll discuss can be reused inside your tools and applications across every domain. The autocomplete is a powerful use case for LLMs hiding in plain sight. Since this solution stays close to the prompt, it's likely whatever OpenAI has to announce today will only add value to your autocomplete. Here's exactly what that looks like. We're not going to touch this yet. Let's talk about the OmniComplete, the autocomplete for everything. Domain-agnostic, auto-improving user autocompletes. This is only possible because of LLM technology. Before LLMs, we had powerful dropdowns and autocompletes, but nothing like this. The ability to take a BAP, to take a huge prompt, and to ask your LLM to autocomplete any domain that you have sufficient information for is game changing. And in this video, I want to show you exactly what that looks like to help your users get accurate and fast autocompletes. So let's break down the big ideas. Why do we care about LLM autocompletes? Why are they so different than traditional autocompletes? LLM autocompletes can self-improve with every single completion. The codebase I'm going to share with you has a simplistic yet effective way to, on every completion your users make on your tool, on your website, it's going to reinforce the most popular autocomplete. In doing that, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build prompts that auto-improve with each use. We care about LLM autocompletes because they are easily reusable across your tools and application. There's one prompt and there are 3 variables inside the prompt that you swap in and out based on the context and based on the domain you're solving for. That's it. It's not a stretch to say that after you watch this video, you will not have to write any more autocompletion code. You'll only need the prompt I'm going to share with you in this video. So the interesting thing about LLM autocompletes, imagine you have an FAQ on your website, right? It has a couple of the most popular questions that users have directly reached out and asked you. When you have an autocomplete powered by an LLM, the users can literally enter in any question they're looking for. And that gives you actionable information about your prospects and users. You have quantifiable data about what your users care about when it comes to your tool, when it comes to your product. This is game changing. Please do not miss the importance of this bullet point. From a business perspective, this is the biggest takeaway of this video. LLM autocompletes reveal actionable information about your prospects, users, and customers visiting your websites. And then lastly, I'm just going to share the code base that I use to build this tool right here. I don't always have time to share complete code bases that are digestible, that are easily set up, but when I do, I love to share them with you. I'm really starting to dig into code bases that have prompt-centered architecture. So we have the client, we have the server, and then we need a concrete place for not only our prompts, but a place to test our prompts and to validate our prompts. And in this video, I'm going to share with you a concrete client-server architecture where we have a prompt-centered architecture. Everything is built around the prompt. So again, we're going to demo this in just a second. We're getting there, but first let's talk about the high-level architecture. If we don't understand the high level, nothing else matters. So here's the front end and the back end I was talking about. This is a classic architecture. We have a single front end and we have 2 back end endpoints that we're going to be discussing right now. So what does it look like? So imagine this prompt comes in from a user. How does Uno CSS compare to Tailwind CSS? Uno CSS is a atomic CSS engine. Feel free to look that up. I'm using Uno CSS, Vue.js, and Tailwind CSS just as examples here for our domain-specific knowledge for our autocomplete. So imagine you're the owner of Uno CSS and you have an OmniComplete on your website. So this is an LLM-powered autocompletion, and they type, how does Uno CSS? And then based on all the information that you've had from previous visitors, you create this autocompletion for them. How does that look between our front end and back end? So as soon as they type, how does Uno CSS? What happens is we hit this endpoint here, /get autocomplete. What it's going to do is look at all the previous results from users and the hit rates of each one of them and all of your domain specific knowledge for your tool or application. And it's going to run a prompt that has this information inside the prompt. So it has both the hit rates, previous completions, and it also has your domain specific knowledge. So that's all in the prompt. Over time, that prompt will turn into a BAP just because as your tool or application grows, your prompt will grow larger. I'll link our BAP video in the description. This endpoint is going to give us all of our auto completions ranked by hit rate. If there's no auto completion, we're going to fall back on our domain specific knowledge. This is going to hit an LLM provider. What that is exactly doesn't matter. In our OmniComplete example here, I'm using Groq on top of a Llama 70b model. Groq is fast, so it's perfect for use cases like this where you need results fast. So this gets you an auto completion, right? So now our user has the compare to tailwind CSS completion. As soon as they hit tab, our second backend post request gets hit, and that's going to be our /use autocomplete. And what this is going to do is increment and store both the input and the completion. And this simple architecture is all we need to build an OmniComplete, an LLM-powered autocomplete that can change domains with minor tweaks to your prompt. So let's go ahead and actually run this, right? How does this look in production? We have this OmniComplete here, and remember, we're just focused on the autocomplete functionality. When we hit enter, we don't really care what happens next. That's up to your tool to figure out and solve, right? So let's go ahead and run this exact example, right? How does Uno CSS? So go ahead and just run that. So we'll say, how does Uno CSS compare to tailwind CSS? Okay. If we hit tab here, we can autocomplete, and then we can hit enter here, right? Fantastic. So whatever your application does, it takes the prompt from there, right? Let's go ahead and run another OmniComplete example. So let's say easiest way to set up. So this is a good one. So easiest way to set up Uno CSS in a Vue.js project, right? And we get the auto completion. It's really important to show expertise on your websites and in your tools, right? When you can autocomplete an LLM powered field for your users, it tells your user consciously and subconsciously that you know what they're looking for. This autocomplete is spot on, and it's something that someone might actually query on our Uno CSS website, right? Just as an example, right? So this is awesome. So we have autocompletes that are domain specific, powered by our LLM, that are self-improving, right? Every time that autocompletion happens, it's more likely to happen again for additional users that visit the website. So let's start by looking at the prompt, the most important piece of this application. So if I type prompt here, you can see we have this simplistic prompt. Let's walk through this. So I'm using a prompt in the markdown syntax. So I have an H1 here, and then I have a couple of H2s here. My H2s represent important information for my prompt for the LLM. So you can see here we have a couple of rules. So this is our generation rules. You closely follow the generation rules. I'm using the capitalized reference prompt variables. Anytime I refer to one of these variables, it has a corresponding place as a markdown header item. And this lets our LLM have a place to concretely reference that information. So you can see we have a bunch of rules here. This is guiding our LLM, guiding the prompt to make the completion properly. And then we have the important information down here, right? We have 4 variables. We have the topic. The topic is going to be the high-level domain we're operating in. So in our example, we are operating in Vue.js and Uno CSS. The previous completions is going to be our list of previously completed items. We'll dive into that in just a second here. We then have our domain knowledge. This is a plain text file that has all the information you need your LLM to know to answer questions about your tool or application. And then finally, we have the completion that we want our user to solve. So in the previous example, when we typed something like, how does Uno CSS pair? And then we wait a little bit and get that auto completion to tailwind CSS. Our prompt in here, our auto completion will just be this, right? So, and let's go ahead and take a look at what these previous completions look like. So this is the most important piece. This is how we're able to self-improve, to auto-improve our application. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And it's pretty simple. Let's collapse everyone except the top. You can see here we have, just like we looked at, we have the input, how does Uno CSS, and then we have our completions, right? We can return more than one completion. We're only using the top, so right now we just say compare to tailwind CSS. This has 9 hits. So I've been testing this, I've been building this, and I have this up to 9 hits. So let's go ahead and look at that full flow of what this looks like, right? So we'll refresh here, and then we'll type, how does Uno CSS? Bam, so we have that completion come up. I'm gonna hit tab. Look what happened over here on the right side. This incremented from 9 to 10. This is how we're able to constantly improve over time. And this JSON blob, right? All this information, every single time our prompt runs, this gets dropped in to our previous completion. And then we're referencing our previous completions in a couple generation rules, just saying, hey, if we have a completion, use the top hit, right? Always prefer the completion with the highest hits, right? And that's exactly what we have here. So this is how we're able to take a OmniComplete and just make it self-improve on its own. And notice there's nothing in here that is specific to Vue.js or Uno CSS, right? This is the most important piece. This is what makes the system an OmniComplete system, right? All you have to do is come in here, switch out your topic, switch out your previous completions, and then add your domain knowledge and start firing off autocompletes, right? So this code is going to be linked in the description if you want to go ahead and check this out. If you can understand how this can drive satisfaction for your users, and you can see how you can take this prompt and really use it for your specific use case, go ahead and hit the like, hit the sub. I deeply appreciate every like and every sub that we've gotten on the channel. It means a lot that we can focus so deeply on real technology, solving real problems, using LLMs in real use cases, exploring different ideas, and the fact that so many show up to really push what they can do with their engineering means a lot. So if you would hit the like, hit the sub, I definitely appreciate that. And let's go ahead and talk about the architecture of this application. So like we looked at, it's a simple client-server application, but there are a couple important pieces here that I want to highlight. So on the top level, I've kind of dropped in a Vue.js application here, and we just have like classic stuff here. This is your React code, this is your Svelte code, your Solid.js code, whatever you like to use. If you ask me what front-end framework you use is completely irrelevant nowadays. They've all essentially converged. It's really about how quickly can you get to production and how quickly can you provide value to your users. And every once in a while, you need a really efficient front-end system that just runs fast. But again, usually that's all about the cloud infrastructure you're running on. Anyway, so we have our front-end file there. We then have a simple Python Flask server. And if we hop in here, you can see that this is serving up those two routes, use autocomplete, and we have our get autocomplete, right? So just as you'd expect, we have a simple switcher here. If you want to change topics, you can go ahead and just add another tuple and update the index. And then we have something really interesting here. We have prompt tests. I've been experimenting with different ways to get prompt validation, get prompt testing inside production code bases. So basically created this pattern where we have a specific type of prompt that we want to solve. And so this is the prompt file we were looking at before. And then we have the knowledge base information here, right? So if we go into this, domain knowledge.txt, you can see it's just a text file. This file will grow in size over time. Eventually this will be a BAP. It'll contain a ton of information about your specific tool or product. But you notice here, this is a knowledge base specific to the Vue.js problem solve. And so this is where you can break things out, right? You can come in here and add another domain problem set. So let's say we were talking about, Aider, right? So in here, you would add another domain knowledge and previous completions, and then you would basically just go to main and update topics to fit exactly what you were trying to solve. And I think there's one more variable here on the front, and I just use as a placeholder inside the app.view component, just topic right there, right? And then that's it. After you change those couple items, you have the OmniCompletion ready to solve your specific use case, right? The LLM-powered autocomplete. But so the interesting thing about this architecture is that this actually integrates directly with PromptFoo. I'll link previous PromptFoo videos in the description. PromptFoo is a prompt testing framework that can help you gain confidence in your prompts. But you can basically see here, I'm testing on Llama-3 and 70b via Groq. I've got a simple assertion. I want to make sure I'm always getting back JSON. And then I have some tests, right? So you can see here, I'm actually routing my previous completion inside my test variables directly to my Vue.js, previous completions, and domain knowledge text files. So this architecture allows me to directly integrate my confidence in my prompts. And we can go ahead and just run this right now. So we open up a new terminal here, just type yarn test, and this kicks off a PromptFoo evaluation. So it's running all of these tests I've set up on my prompt, and it's passing in the prompt variables specified in the test, right? So you can see here we have topic, input value, previous completions, and domain knowledge, and these are getting wired in via a JSON file and a text file, and that all gets placed inside these variables, right, for each one of these tests. And it runs twice because I have two providers, and if we go ahead and open up the prompt viewer view, you can see that we have these completions running, right? So I wanted to share this architectural pattern with you just because I think it's really important to know that your prompts are working and to gain confidence in your prompts. And the best way to do that is to literally share your prompt and the way that you replace and template out your prompts with the real information to have them ready to go in your test. our server is looking directly at this test file. There's definitely better ways to configure this. I think this is just the fastest, most direct way to both validate your prompts and ship them to production. Let's go ahead and run one more example. What I want to do here is look at what happens when we run a brand new query, right? So let's open up our previous completion. Let's say we've just created a new application. We'll go ahead and actually clear it out. And we don't have anything for our users. This is the beauty of the LLM and this prompt in particular, right? If we don't have any previous completions, our LLM is going to fall back on our domain knowledge, which is just a raw string of everything we want our LLM to know to help answer questions, solve problems for our users. Even with nothing, we can come in here, refresh, and just start asking questions, how to integrate CSS with Vue. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit tab. And there you go. So we now have a brand new hit. And I do want to call out that I'm just using a JSON file here. You might want something more intricate. You might want to save this to a, SQL database, NoSQL database, a KV store, whatever and however you want to store this information is completely up to you. It's all about the concepts. This information is going to use in the prompt test and in our production server. However you want to divide that up, definitely go for it. But so we have this automatically updating, right? This is essentially our database for this test, right? So let's go ahead and run another one, right? So if we said something like, how does CSS compare to Tailwind CSS? Okay, classic one. So you can see there, we just added that hit. Let's ask another question. Do I use the same? Okay, so we have another question. Do I use the same presets for Windows CSS as I do for Windy CSS? And you can see here, if we just, copy this and search Windy CSS, this is in our domain knowledge. So this is all getting pulled right from our domain knowledge as a fallback. If I run this again though, do I use the same? And then autocomplete. You can see here we have another hit for that autocomplete, and we also have a sorted file, so that's going to bump to the top. So I think the OmniComplete and the idea of the LLM-powered autocomplete really points out an interesting use case for LLMs. If you have the knowledge and you have the information, you can kind of merge the old way of doing things with just a bunch of raw code, a bunch of business logic with the new way, which is you have a prompt, you have domain knowledge, and you have information that fuels some type of use case. You keep your domain knowledge and your information that fuels a use case separate, and then you put that into a prompt that can iterate on the variables that you're giving it, right? I think the next big phase of LLMs in 2024 and 2025 is really going to answer the question, how can you use your unique domain-specific data and knowledge to fuel interesting prompts and user experiences to solve real problems? There's a lot of talk about us being in an AI bubble or an LLM bubble, and frankly, I don't think it matters either way. If all development stopped right now, we would still have so many incredible use cases, so many incredible products and tools to build out. So I just want to leave you with that idea. Think about how you can take your existing workflows, your existing engineering, development, product workflows, and enhance them with a self-improving, auto-improving prompt based on automatically updating data that your users drive. This really starts to push us where we're going on this channel, which is we're going to build software that is living. Software that builds value on our behalf while we sleep. If that sounds interesting to you, if you want to follow along the journey, and even if you don't believe me and you think it's total BS, hit the like, hit the follow, join the journey. I'm pushing on this. I'm dedicating my career to this technology. We're going to see how far we can push it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.